East Hampton Town Board, we are live.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the November 21st meeting of the East Hampton Town Board. Carol, would you please read the roll call?
Present.
Present.
Councilmember Rogers.
Present.
Present. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Today's work session will begin with a public portion where any member of the public may address the board on any topic. We ask that you please try to keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. And that will be followed by a new Senior Center environmental review, the new Senior Center design, development, and cost analysis, the proposed code changes to West Drive, Morris Park Lane, and 2024 community development block grants, followed by liaison reports. And we do have a few resolutions today. So Carol, do we have anyone signed up? Take by a show of hands, anyone who wishes to address the board. Rick, you want to address the board? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Peter, members of the board. Richard Whalen. I'm here representing two of the three homeowners a little bit west of the Montauk Highway on Bluff Road, on the north side of Bluff Road. One is Elizabeth Hamilton, and the other is the family of Mary Curls. Dennis Curls, her son, is here today. What I want to address the board on concerns just where Bluff Road joins the Montauk Highway. There are several old homes. Actually, there's one that was rebuilt, about 10 years ago by Brancasio. That's the large one at the intersection. But just west of that are three older homes that go back to the early 1900s. And this is an area where, well, let me start the story this way. In the early 2000s, when I was in the town attorney's office, John Jelnicki came into my office one day and he said, "Look at this survey." It was a survey of the last house on that street. It was owned by the Specht family. It's now owned by Brancasio. And it showed a house, 3/4 of which was purportedly in the Bluff Road right-of-way. So neither John nor I had ever seen anything like that before. That was my only involvement with that property. But in 2008, the town gave Brancasio, who had inherited from Specht, they were related, a deed that basically tripled the size of that lot. So why did the town do that? And how does that relate to today? Well, after it happened, Elizabeth Hamilton contacted me. This is some years ago, and it's been a long, slow process of research and everything else. But what we believe happened is that somewhere in the mid-20th century, the road was either remonumented or surveyed, we believe, incorrectly. That's why the Brancasio house, or the Specht house, and one of the houses owned by Alex Balsam is here today as well, representing Charles Santacola and Lori McGarva. They own the house in between Hamilton and Curls. They have a house that actually their lot has two houses, one of which, again, is largely within the town road right-of-way, or what purports to be the road right-of-way. We believe that there was a change in the road configuration somewhere in the mid-20th century. We think we have good evidence for that, and that should be in the packet that was submitted to you. Just to the west of our three lots that we're talking about, which are Hamilton, Santacola, McGarva, and then Curls, there was a subdivision in 1928. The surveyor for the subdivision was a guy named Wallace Halsey, respected local surveyor. If you extrapolate the line, that's the drawing that you just got here. If you were to take the road line shown on that filed map, it's what you see here as the corrected road line. That's where the north side of Bluff Road would run if you extrapolate it from that map. And this portion of Bluff Road from Atlantic Avenue all the way to the Montauk Highway is supposed to just be a straight line. The current monumented line is red shown on your map, and that's why it cuts through one of the Santacola McGarva houses. That's why it went through the middle of the Brancasio property. So we don't, the other evidence that we have is that when Mary Curls, now Mary Curls, you probably know, Mary, she bought her house, she's lived in there, and Dennis tells me she lived there her whole life, but she bought it from her parents in 1952. We have the deed. By the way, she still lives in the house, okay? And I'm supposed to see her this afternoon at a church supper. In 1952, that deed actually had the side lot lines measured. And if you follow those, so we know what the measurements of her lot were, and if you take those measurements, they don't go to where the road is on the Suffolk County tax map today. They continue further and go to approximately where the corrected road line is. So what are we asking for? The bottom line is, Brancasio got a quitclaim deed for much more land that we're looking for back in 2008. He did not pay for it, and presumably because the town was convinced at the time that he had a legitimate claim to that road right-of-way. We have talked with Steve Lynch, who's given a letter in support. We're asking that the town give the three property owners that we're talking about here, Hamilton, McGarva, Santa Cola, and Curls, 33 feet of the road right-of-way. That would be enough to put the Santa Cola McGarva house on their own lot. It would take most of the Curls and Hamilton front yards, backyards, whatever you want to call them, put them on their own property. The road right-of-way is 99 feet wide, Bluff Road. You don't have any real use of the northern part of it. It's literally, it's the yards, the parking areas, and in the case of Santa Cola McGarva, a house. So you're not using it. 33 feet, if we receive 33 feet of the road right-of-way.
Raise the bar. I bet the bar. I think that because of that, the higher you raise it, the higher I'm gonna go.
Is something wrong over here?
And Vegas,
So if we get 33 feet of the road, then the town still has a 66-foot wide right-of-way, which is more than sufficient. And in fact, you still can't do too much with the remainder because that right-of-way narrows down to 37 feet at Brancasio. So that's our request. We put that in writing. You have the documentation to support it. And we hope that you'll look favorably on what we're asking for.
Rick, when was the Santa Cola house built, most southerly portion?
Alex will have to answer that, but I believe all those homes, go back to the early 20th century.
Thank you.
They're aerial photographs that you can sort of make them out on. You want to say anything, Alice?
Rick, I remember the Brancasio house.
Yeah.
Did that one go in front of the zoning board for relief? I have a
I don't-
recollection
they-
of taking
that I don't-
pictures on this property.
Yeah. Well, when they built the new house, it was controversial because it is a very large house. I don't know whether they went to the zoning board. I was not involved. It was obviously after they got the land from the town.
Okay, thanks, because I remember this part.
Yep.
Yes, Alex? Morning.
Hi, good morning. As Rick said, I'm working with the Santa Cola and McGarva family that owns the middle lot.
Can you just let us know who you are? Just for the record.
Yeah, Alex Balsam, yeah. And we've been working with Rick on this for years. As you said, Rick's, the papers that he submitted to you do an excellent job of explaining how we think this happened and why we think the solution that we're proposing is fair to everybody. In the case of McGarva and Santa Cola, obviously, having the town property line bisect their house is not benefiting anyone. Clearly seems that there was an error, almost 100 years ago. So the house, I don't remember the exact date the house was built. I'm 99% positive that it was obviously before zoning. There are two CO'd houses on the property, so would have had to be before zoning. And that's it. Like I said, really just here to express our interest on behalf of Santa Cola McGarva to join in on the solution as the middle property owner.
Thank you.
Like I just one thing. I also wanted to say that what we would be giving the town in return is a covenant that there no more, in other words, this would resolve any potential claims to the road right away. Because it's possible that we might actually have a legitimate claim to more of the road. But if the town were to proceed as we're requesting, we would covenant that there can be no further claims made by these three property owners against the road.
But a private property owner cannot do eminent domain against a municipality.
Well, the issue is not adverse possession. this isn't an adverse possession claim. You can't have adverse possession against the Crown. The question is really whether we own it, you know.
Further into the roadway.
Yeah, further out
Understand.
anyway.
Yeah. But you would forego that?
Yes.
Just saying.
Yes, there'd be no further claims that we want to go a little bit further or anything like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the board at this time?
Good morning, Town Board. Jane Meering, Emma Gansett. I just want to talk about leaves a little bit today. By the way, I drove here via Skim Bluff Road and Skim Hampton. So much beautiful color still hanging on. I'm hoping everyone's enjoying it. Of course, leaves mean leaf blowing, and so I wanted to come back on that topic. I just read, and you've heard some of these statistics before, but I want to focus on it again. This is on Edwina von Gaal's Perfect Earth site. Using a commercial leaf blower, I mean, she means gas powered by that, for 1 hour emits more air pollution than driving from New York City to Las Vegas and back twice. So obviously, we've made some change. The town made some good changes, restricting gas leaf blowers for part of the season. I'm speaking as a citizen today. I am also a member of the Energy and Sustainability Committee. I do know that the committee passed a resolution amongst ourselves, to move forward on gas leaf blowers and to ban them outright all year, beginning January 1st, 2025. And I think we did that on October 16th, and Kate talked about that to the board and presented it to the board. So I just wanted to come back now because the new year is racing towards us. You're going to start thinking about your legislative agenda. I'm sure you're already. So I just wanted to make a pitch to see that come in front of you, start some work sessions, and begin hopefully down the road. So there is enough time over the course of the year to, if the town were to move forward with it, if the public was to agree at public hearing and such, that we'd have enough time. I just wanted to note, I walk around a lot, I observe around, partly because I have the dog, and I see a lot of landscaper trucks, and the backs are open and you can see all their equipment. And I am noticing, it seems like every landscaper is already equipped with electric as well as their gas blowers. So I would hope the industry would already be prepared, but I just wanted to come back and put that more on your agenda going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Yes, Jerry? You just state your name for the record, please.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Gerard Terza Jr. I'm the Fire and EMS Administrator for the Village of East Hampton. Good morning, Mr. Supervisor, Madam Supervisor-elect, members of the board. Just kind of curious, we had the hearing last week for the Northwest and the Water Protection District contracts. And I was just kind of curious if that was going to be a walk-on resolution today, or if there's some type of an issue holding that up, keeping it from the agenda.
They should be on. They are, though. Rob, do you know?
I can go downstairs and prepare the resolution. Just have to,
They'll be walk-ons.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I'm the only one here, so.
Anyone else wish to address the board at this time?
Gonna send another attorney up?
There's nobody else here.
So Jane was talking about, this is Lena Tabori. I'm also on the Energy Sustainability Committee, and I'm sort of here on that behalf, but also on my own behalf. She was talking about gas leaf blowers, and just this morning I got an email from Green Living saying that California has now passed a law throughout the state, starting in 2024, eliminating gas leaf blowers. So just thought I'd leave that with you for the future. But what I did come here to talk about was gas cooktops. I was extremely excited to see on the agenda today that you were going to be talking about the senior center. And I'm, of course, hoping that all of our new construction is going to be all electric and that we will move in that direction. But my hope is that the senior center has this incredible ability to demonstrate to the entire community exactly what we're trying to do as a town residentially and hopefully municipally as much as possible. The biggest single issue with going all electric is, as you all already know, the gas cooktop, which nobody wants to get rid of. Everybody loves their gas cooktop. And there was a recent poll, which I think I sent maybe to members of the board, indicating that 30% of the United States would go all electric altogether, but another 30% would go all electric if they could just keep their gas stove. So that would be a total of 60% if we could actually get everybody moving, wanting to go induction stove. But the biggest problem that I foresee is, or that I see, is that everybody thinks of electric as those coils that were on their grandmother's electric stove, and they don't want to go back there. They don't know what an induction stove does or can do. They don't know how burn-proof it is. They don't know all the safety measures that become available because of it. And my hope is that the senior center, as it strives towards net zero, can do induction stoves in their kitchen so that we can potentially use them as demonstrations for the entire town to become accustomed and knowledgeable about induction stoves. I did look at prices because I thought that might be an issue that is coming up. I don't know how major or minor that would be for the other elements of the senior center. So I printed out what PC Richards has, both in the way of a gas range and what they have in the way of an induction range. You know, there's so many different varieties, double ovens, 5 burners, 4 burners, single ovens. So I tried to do just single, just so you could see the comparison. It's a few $100s more expensive to do an induction oven. But in the long term, if you think about the lack of expense that you will be engaging if you don't put gas into the senior center, the savings would be, I think, fairly humongous. So all my paperwork is now in your hands. And so is my hope for the future. You are all aware that we passed 2 degrees Celsius on Friday for the first time in the history of the world. That should be a bit of an accelerant for us as we try to move forward in our mitigation and adaptation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lynn.
So Lena, we are using induction stoves in the new senior center. Apparently, they were only available as 4 burner. And so we're going to have 2 cooktops so that we have 8 burners.
Oh. I spent the morning telling Kate how much I love the microwave, and now I have to say to you, Kathy.
Thank you, Lena.
Okay.
Anyone else wish to address the board at this time? Do we have any callers on the line?
We have no callers on the line.
At this point, we can move forward with our first agenda topic, which is the new senior center environmental review. We have Jeremy Samuelson, our planning director, here.
Jeremy, are we having technical difficulties or they've all been worked out?
Jason, are we good?
They're worked out.
Oh, beautiful. Could we let the folks in from R2 and from McLean? It should be Matt Jedlicka, Kevin Peterman, Renette Riley, Lena Reef, Carol Ross Barney.
Well, like, I don't know, for us, it's like,
We mute them as they come in, please.
Please continue, Jeremy.
Jeremy Samuelson, Planning Department. Pleasure to see you all this morning. Happy early Thanksgiving. So I will kick us off. You're going to have a series of presenters in front of you this morning. You're going to be looking at two different slide decks. The first slide deck is a combined presentation from myself and representatives from LKMA, McLean Engineering, who you all know. They have been contracted through the architecture firms that are working on this project for us to look at the civil engineering for the site and the environmental review process, and we've all been obviously working as a team here. I will kick us off with some framing. Kathy, you look.
No, I just gotten a text from Matt because he wasn't in right away. So now he's in and he can share a screen. So we're good now.
So I'll kick us off with a little framing information about this part of the process, and then we'll quickly get out of your way and hand it off to my colleagues from LKMA. So you can see the cover slide there talking about the proposed senior center. I'm here to talk to you about why this is a project that is necessary for our community. So it sounds a little obvious to say, but I think it's worth underlining that senior centers are community assets that benefit not just older adults, but really their families and the entire community. I think it's easy to look at the set of proposals for the types of activities and the types of services that will be offered through the senior center and focus only on the benefits to the individuals who participate in those activities themselves. But of course, there is a ripple effect throughout the community for engaging our seniors, supporting them, and helping them thrive. So when we think about what the goals are for this project, I think if we try to get it down to really simple language, we want to provide opportunities for our seniors to engage meaningfully with the community and the programming. We want to support them at whatever phase of their life they are in, and we want to give them the tools to thrive as full members of the community. The actual community that we are serving here spans multiple generations. You know, this is quite a broad chunk of the community that we're talking about here. So this is anyone who, using the Suffolk County definition of senior, is 60 plus. And so when you sort of look at it in demographic terms, that literally chunks us out into three generations that goes without saying have very different needs, very different physical abilities, everything from nutritional counseling to, physical, engagement opportunities in the form of yoga, dance, things like that. And the abilities across a 40-plus year spread are significant. Nonetheless, this is the demographic that we have assigned ourselves responsibility for providing services to through this project. And the way that we do that is we want to support the seniors, not just physically, but in their mental health and their social well-being. So the goal here, of course, is to help seniors thrive by serving their diverse interests, lifestyles, physical abilities, and needs. Interestingly, the demographics for why this is such a powerful project for our community in particular, we are an aging nation and we actually are an aging community that is ahead of the curve, literally ahead of the curve in terms of, again, to use that same term, demographic trends for not just us regionally on the east end of Long Island or Suffolk County, but across the country. If we compare the age of our country, back in 2010 versus 2020, we see that there is a trend towards getting older, but it's at a slower pace than we're aging more locally. So if we look at Suffolk County, going back to 2010, the average age across the county was 39 years old. 10 years later, that had advanced to 41. In East Hampton, the trend is greater. We're aging more quickly, meaning that we have more people coming to town and a bigger percentage of our population that actually is qualifying for these services. So our average age over 10 years jumped from 43 years old to 46 years old. This is important because the senior population is actually the fastest growing portion of our community. So again, if we look at that 2020 census data, what we find is that 55 to 65 was the biggest chunk of our demographics, right? And then the next biggest chunk was 65 plus. And so we know a couple years have passed since 2020, obviously. So those folks that were showing up as 55 in that biggest chunk are now 3 years older, and they're very quickly quickly getting to being eligible for services through the senior center. So it is the two largest chunks of our population. One is aging into this set of services and one is already there. They together are each the biggest two chunks of our population, and taken together, the math is pretty easy here to see where that sort of bulge in the population curve is. So this is who we are. These are the services that are necessary in order for us to actually be walking the walk, as it were, in terms of providing core services to this aspect of our community. I will leave you now with a quick quote that I don't know who to attribute it to, but it's out there in many ways. And it's basically, if you want to know what a community values, look at how they treat and handle services for their most vulnerable populations, the youngest and the oldest among them. So I think the challenge for us here is to live our values in providing those services to that portion of our community. So with that, I'll get out of the way and hand it over to Matt Jedlicka, who can move us more deeply into the review process and some of the environmental work that's happened here. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Welcome, Matt.
Thank you. Good morning, Supervisor and town board members. So just for people that don't know, I'm Matt Jedlicka from LK McLean Associates. We're a consulting engineering firm, and we are working with the R2 architecture team on the new senior center. With me today, I have Kevin Peterman and Vin Corrado, both professional engineers at McLean. We were hired to prepare the environmental assessment forms, the project narrative, and the traffic impact assessment for the new senior center. This project involves a subdivision of a 14-acre property located at 403 Abraham's Path in Amagansett. And the project seeks to construct the new senior center on a 7-acre parcel of that subdivision. So we prepared a full environmental assessment form with the project narrative and traffic impact assessment, which is on file with the town, and you all should have a copy of that. We are here to answer any questions that you may have regarding this submission. The project has also been submitted to the Suffolk County Planning Commission for their review. We will be applying to the Suffolk County Health Department for the subdivision approval as well as the IA sanitary system. The project will include a stormwater pollution prevention plan, or SWIP, that's going to be filed with the New York State DEC. I'm going to pass it off to Kevin Peterman to take the next slide and step you through some of the key design features. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Welcome, Kevin.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So my name is Kevin Peterman. I'm a professional engineer with LK McLean Associates. And next, we'd like to review some of the key design features of the project. So as we mentioned, the project entails the development of a new 22,000 square foot senior center building. The building is designed to be highly energy efficient and seeks to offset energy consumption by installing PV solar arrays over select parking areas, as well as installing geothermal wells to offset energy demand associated with the heating and cooling of the building. From a site perspective, the design has been advanced to maximize the amount of natural area to remain while minimizing the required earthwork, which means that we want to limit the amount of material coming into or leaving the site. The sanitary system for the new senior center facility has been designed as an innovative alternative on-site wastewater treatment system, also known as an IA sanitary system, which helps to reduce the amount of nitrogen in sanitary discharge. And from a stormwater perspective, the stormwater management system has been designed to retain stormwater on site through traditional leaching structures. As Matt mentioned, we are preparing a SWIP, and this will all be documented in the SWIP, and that will be submitted to New York State DEC. And next, I would like to pass the mic to my associate, Vin Corrado, who will be walking us through some of the traffic impact assessment.
Jason, can you let Vin in, please?
Yes.
Also, Ryan Giblin, please. Thank you.
And Ryan? Thank you.
Yumi?
Yes, Ryan.
And I'll invite Yumi as well.
Hey, Vin, you're up.
Oh, okay. I was sitting outside waiting to be let in. And I guess I joined just in time.
Yes, perfect.
Good morning, everybody.
Good
Okay, so
morning.
I wasn't able to listen to the prior presentation, but I'll run through this slide quickly. We prepared the traffic impact assessment for the senior center. In so doing, we looked at the existing traffic generation at the senior center. We did some counts there during the peak times for that senior center. And since there's no information in the public domain about trip generation at centers like this, we use that information to extrapolate to estimate the amount of traffic that the new senior center would generate. And on that basis, we use the relative size, the change in size of the new center as compared to the old center. As a result of that, we estimated approximately 3 times as much traffic will be generated by the expanded center. It may or may not be conservative. We feel it is conservative, likely. On that basis, during the weekday AM peak hour of the adjacent street, the new senior center, we estimate, will add 28 new trips. And during the time when the senior center is most active, which is a little bit later in the morning after the commuter peak, we estimated that it could generate 100 new trips. In addition to so it would result in 139 peak trips. So because we don't know specifics about the future schedule, et cetera, and and what type of events would take place there, for a conservative estimate, we superimposed the maximum number of trips from the new center on the maximum amount of traffic that we counted on Abraham's Path, so that we get a combined, really conservative estimate of the potential impact of the senior center on traffic conditions. And then we did capacity analysis at the 2 intersections that are likely to experience the new traffic, which would be Abraham's Path at Town and Abraham's Path at Montauk Highway. The results of that capacity analysis indicated that the new traffic would not have any impact, no deterioration in level of service. The minor increases in potential delay at the intersections, but like I said, no deterioration in level of service at either intersection. And that's where the last bullet says that we consider that to be an imperceptible impact. And the final point is that we looked at the crash experience at Montauk Highway and Abraham's Path, and at Town at Abraham's Path, and the crash experience is relatively low, and the new estimated traffic is not likely to have a significant impact on that as well. I'm happy to answer any questions on that basis. I guess the summary is that the relocation of and expansion of the senior center, we don't expect it to have an impact on operating conditions on Abraham's Path.
Okay, thanks, Vin. So the full EAF, the narrative, and the plans, the subdivision plan, the site plan, and the traffic impact assessment is all on file with the town. If you guys have any sort of questions regarding that information, feel free to ask.
And I just wanted to say that it's posted in 2 places on the town website. It's on the landing page for the new East Hampton Senior Center, and it's also in the folder with work session materials for today.
Do board members have any questions about the EAF?
I do not.
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Matt and Kevin, appreciate it. So now we can bring in the R2 team to go over the design development and cost analysis. Welcome, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Oh. Hi, I'm Carol Ross Barney. I am a principal with R2, and I'm going to describe the design where we are today. We've just completed design development, which means that our next step is to make contract documents so this project can be purchased, so it can be bid. So the design is pretty well developed right now, and I'd like to take just a few minutes to show you where it is. I know you've seen it before. In fact, here's an outline of what we're going to cover. Let me go back one. Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. I'm going to spend just a few seconds showing you the development of the design. You'll recognize it. You've seen it before. We just have more fully developed the materiality in the systems. And then we have an estimate of current costs. Renette's going to review that with you. And we have some other things for you to think about. Site costs. This site is a little bit unusual. And so the site has impacted the cost of the project. We're going to discuss that. We are net zero ambitious. We think we can accomplish it. And we're going to talk to you about the strategies and the cost impacts to reach net zero. And then we have some potential changes, almost like a menu. And we'll go over those strategies with you. And then finally, we'll show you our schedule and our next steps. So the design, like I said, next slide. Oh, no, you can go to the site plan, Steve. I think Kevin and Matt did a good job of describing our design strategy for this site. We have cited the building to preserve the sylvan setting as much as possible and to create the least amount of disruption, either grading or clearing. When you enter the site, there will be about 64 spaces available for visitors right at the front door. We put an emphasis on universal access, especially since this is a building designed for seniors. Just about other site circulation on this, we have located our parking for employees, deliveries at the south property line. Outside of that, the site is really naturally developed. We've tried to keep as many trees as possible. We've tried to keep as much of the natural grading as possible. So the building, when you're in it, you'll look into a natural prairie to the east, which is also, by the way, that's our septic field. And when you look out the western windows, you'll look into a wooded hillside. Next slide. Here's a bird's eye view, and you can see some of the features that I've already mentioned. This is taken as if you were a bird flying over the main entrance. You can also see in this slide, in this drawing, how we plan to site some of the solar panels that we are going to use to offset energy use in this building. Go to the next slide. Real quick review of the plans. During design, we call this the windmill because we created a center with basically 3 wings, the windmill, for different functions. So when you enter the front door in the vestibule, I can't point here, but if someone can, it'd be great. You'll be aware of the entire building. You'll be aware of the dining room, but what you'll be in is a really, I think, cozy lobby. Immediately to your right will be a senior greeter. And from that, right behind the greeter will be administrative offices and also offices where for the staff that offer services to the seniors. If you go to the left to the purple wing there, you'll be able to enter the 4 classrooms that we're providing. We have classrooms, we've called them the game room, which is a larger classroom. It was designed, by the way, to host games, card games. We have a media room that will be prepared to show media. We have an arts and crafts room, which will have a sink suitable for art classes. And finally, we have a wellness room, which will have exercise and physical activity. The kitchen, storage, and maintenance is located in the southernmost wing, but really the center of this building, you can go to the next slide, Steve. The center of this building is the dining room. This is the heart. We really wanted to create a community-focused center. So when you're sitting in here, you'll be aware of the entire building. The views are focused out, but it's truly centered on this room. We have, not in this presentation, but we've made a lot of sketches to show how this will work as a dining room for the seniors, but it also can serve other functions. when it's not being used as a dining room. I want to talk a little bit about materiality, the materials we're using. We've really focused on natural materials with low embedded carbon, and you can see from this drawing that the structural system is mass timber, including a wood deck. In fact, we've used wood and natural materials as often as we can. You can see that we're using a wood paneling here too. Research shows that spaces that do feature views to nature and natural materials are more comfortable, and people feel more relaxed in them. So we've done that as much as we possibly can. You can go to the next slide. This is a view, actually it would be from the south looking to the southwest. And so it's in that prairie area. When we started looking at the town and the building traditions of the town, we were really impressed by the shingle tradition. It's a simple material. It's installed in very small overlapping pieces to create a weatherproof barrier. We looked at it really seriously for a long time as a singular material, but we also recognized that it had a number of drawbacks. Wood needs maintenance, it needs replacement. And so we did a little more research, and what we're proposing to you, what this drawing is showing, is a metal shingle. In fact, it is stainless steel in material. We selected it because it has a long life and virtually no maintenance. But we also we selected it because we think it'll be beautiful on this site. We have a variety of reflective finishes that we can get this material in, and it's our intention for the building to reflect the natural site. We want the shingle to act almost like camouflage on the site, so that it truly feels like you're in nature when you're in this building. So the next slides that we have are about our cost. Ronette, are you going
Hi,
to?
I'm Ronette Riley. I'm a principal at R2 Architecture. So at the schematic design phase and at the design development phase, we did cost analysis. And from there, we went through and parsed it out in various ways to understand where our costs were coming from. So right now, the building is about 17.7 million. And in that are some fixed expenses. For instance, our new expanded commercial kitchen is almost 600,000. The audiovisual system is 320, and our security is 125. We also have our PV system, which will be covering parking spaces outside, both at the north and south end of the site. And that PV system is about $3 million. In terms of looking at the site, we said, okay, what are our costs just for the site development? And that's about 9.26 million. And we have some early clearing that we expect to do in January so that construction can happen. And that's about 200,000 of the 9.26 million. Our total cost, construction cost, we're looking at $31.135 million. On top of that, there'll be other costs, such as a furniture allowance of $500,000. So when speaking about the project, hard costs, we're saying that it's $31.6 million. And if we go to the next slide, it's important to understand the site implication costs because of this 600-foot pole portion of the site that's 80 feet by 600. We have additional costs that wouldn't be in our project if the project were bordering a street. So what we have is we have to bring all the utilities, the fire hydrant, the water, electrical, up that 600 feet and distribute it through the site before we ever get to the building. And those costs are about $1 million. That includes the trenching, bringing in the utilities, grading this, paving this portion of the site, and then the added bonus of parking on the flagpole portion, which could benefit both the Terry King ball fields and our senior center. So if we're looking at the overall site, the lot itself is 305,000 square feet. And of that, the main part of the lot is 258,000 square feet, which means our flagpole portion is almost 47,000 square feet, which represents 15% of the overall lot. But in terms of cost, it represents 3% of the site development costs. 3% of the overall cost of the project and 11% just of the site development costs, this flagpole portion. Now, this is inherent and baked into the project, but we felt it was important to discuss its impact on the total budget. Let's go to the next one. One of the aspirations from the very beginning, from the town direction, is to try to achieve net zero and also other sustainability features. And we call this out as premiums to the site. And those premiums in the overall budget are approximately $4.6 million. The largest share is the PV system, which allows us to generate our power for the site without fossil fuels, but it comes at a cost premium of almost $3 million. The other big cost here is geothermal. The geothermal has a higher capital cost, but it's a lower life cycle cost. So it makes the site more efficient. And that's that overall cost is about $1 million to the project. The other suggestion that we have is the pavement. We could asphalt the site, but we would create a heat island, and it's much less energy sensitive than if we use concrete. So that differential from concrete to asphalt is about $500,000. We also have other premiums to the site, which are EV charging station, rainwater harvesting. We have an all-electric kitchen. There's no gas. And we have triple glazed glazing for energy efficiency. And then the materials for the interior of the project we're looking at from their sustainability and net zero capabilities. Let's go to the next. So, of course, whenever we look at budgets, we say, can we make things less expensive? And once we received the cost estimates, our teams worked together, all of our consultants, and trying to come up with anything that we felt could be eliminated without compromising the design. And we did that prior to this presentation. But these are deducts that we don't want to necessarily do, but we could either remove them now or plan for them in the future. So one is changing the concrete road to asphalt, removing the parking along the pole. And once again, both of those, 1 and 2, have important consequences to the net zero aspirations. We have 3 walking trails on our site. One that's an ADA accessible trail, we call that Trail 1, and we have 2 others that are more demanding. Those trails could be put in at a later date or just not put in at all, but they represent about $300,000 worth of costs. Our PV system, which is absolutely essential to our net zero aspirations, is this $2.7 million, and the charging stations for battery operated cars is $43,000. Also, a part of the building is that we have a generator, and that generator is $357,000. And although it doesn't add to the net zero, it is part of the resiliency plan of the center and climate changes and things to keep the site going in case of a hurricane or some other climate disaster or incident. So those are, if we go to the next slide, these are illustrated. You can see where the parking is along the flagpole. We think that is an important community benefit, but it's also $74,000 to put the parking in. We show where the PV systems are in blue, both in the north and in the south of the site, and the removal of walking trail 2 and 3, which and the EV charging stations, which are in the main part of the parking lot. So I think that's the end of, next steps. So we are here, which is down in November of 2023. We've gone through our community workshops, our concept design, the schematic design, the design development, and now we're at the point where we are going for the various approvals and that we need for the site, and we're starting construction documentation, construction documents. We anticipate that to be a 16-week process for the CDs, with the expected go to bid date in May, April and May. And we expect bidding to be about 12 weeks. And we're looking at getting a temporary C of O at the end of December 2025. So that's where we are and where we hope to be, where we expect to be on this project.
Great.
Thank you, Rana.
Maybe we take the PowerPoint down so that we can see you folks. And David, did you want to go first? Because I know you have a time constraint.
Yeah, I have a meeting at 12 o'clock for the ongoing FIMP project for the federal government set that they didn't look at our schedule. Anyway, cost concerns are always a factor into any project, taxpayer money and making sure of it, but I want to make sure that this project is one that we all are proud of for 50 years out right now and the design elements of it. I've always thought personally that the use of asphalt would be the lower expense, so I would support going back to the asphalt. I think we can potentially use concrete at the entrance or the drop-off areas. That would be appropriate. But the appropriate maintenance and crack coating on the dirt will increase the crack sealing, if you want to say, will increase the durability of the asphalt and the lifelong lifespan of it then too. So I'd rather personally save the funding in that aspect for $500,000. As far as the pole, I do think that there's a connectivity to the recreational facility. I would ask my fellow board members to think about saving the parking on the northerly side, which is nearer to the ball field, removing it on the southern side. I think there's an economy of scale for clearing it right now and developing that. I do believe that there's a long walk from, say, home plate in the bleacher areas to the main parking lot, and that it would be used. And eventually, if there's other facilities built into the location, this area is flatter, and people might want to walk from here instead of from where the senior center might be sited. Let's say if we were to add the new bathroom, potentially pickleball courts, senior fitness and such in different areas of this complex looking globally. I think we just stick with the trails of Trail 1, the ADA trail. That's going to be already cleared out there. There's again, that economy of scale to clearing because of the septic system that's in there. And I would support the removal of trails 2 and 3, continue it with the concept and the concept plan, but let's see how the site develops. Let's see how the site plan, the removal goes, and then we could always add it back in there effectively in the future then too, if desired on there. And also, again, a global approach to what the recreational facility is, because again, walking past our form of recreation, and maybe we do a connectivity to other locations in that area then too. To the major costs is with the PV canopies. While I do support trying to get to net zero, it's difficult for me personally to look at the funding source so large. I'd be very interested in seeing about removing the PV canopies to the south, maybe keeping the north. What is that cost savings that would be there? I would also want to make sure that if the town was looking to any potential grant funding applications, that would be for net zero municipal buildings, how that would affect those applications to the cost. Personally, to myself, I would love to look at a cost savings there because I would rather use it in affordable housing options. Those are just my opinions. I thank you for letting me go first on there. And I do have to run, but I will listen to this again. I will watch after I'm done my meeting. Hopefully I'll come back in just a little bit then too. So I thank you for taking my comments, and I will talk to you very shortly. And Kathy, thank you very much for bringing this forward,
David.
and Supervisor too.
Yeah, thank you, David. Thanks for representing us with the Army Corps of Engineers on that very important beach replenishment project, which will be getting underway shortly. So, and again, I don't understand why the federal government doesn't adhere to our schedule.
But nerve. But thank you.
Joking aside, thank you all for all of your work on this project, and Kathy particularly. I find the design to be very forward-thinking and addressing a number of our community goals and concerns, from reaching a net zero on all future projects to engaging the public to find out what type of facility the community supports. We heard quite a bit from the community about bringing in light and the natural surroundings into this planning aspect. I think it's really important that we stay on track for net zero. And as much as that might cost somewhat additional at this point, I think the benefits outweigh the initial costs over time. The sustainable aspects, the maintenance reduction strategies with the types of materials used are really important to us. We know that ongoing maintenance is always a challenge with the over 130 buildings that we have here in East Hampton to take care of. And, staffing for maintenance is challenging as well. So any opportunities to reduce the need for maintenance is important. And I think you've listened to those concerns and have addressed them. I would not remove the walking trails. I think it would be important to include them initially. I think oftentimes if you try to reduce costs on a project at the beginning, when you eventually get to the point of trying to take care of those needs at a later point, they end up costing a lot more. The fact that they're clearing windows, for instance, I think we heard from the public that they support the walking trails. They want to have that connection on site to the natural surroundings. And I know this project is quite expensive. It's probably the most expensive single project the town's ever undertaken. But if you look at the projects the town's undertaken, there haven't been that many really larger projects. I think this town hall complex is probably the last major project that the town actually undertook that was anywhere close to. And if you look at the dollars spent at that time period versus the dollars now, you can see that in projects, I think it's important to cover the bases, make sure you do it right the first time, so you're not having to deal with those kind of legacy issues of trying to take shortcuts. That's basically what I have to say. I support having the PV systems. I know it's expensive, but again, we're trying to reach net zero. We've already made a climate declaration as a town board to seek to meet net zero on all future construction, and this is really a very large project, and we should practice what we preach. In terms of the funding, we have from the community benefits of South Fork Wind, we will have quite a bit of money coming in on a regular basis over the next 25 years. Contributing some of that towards our net zero goals is leveraging renewable energy to help us reach net zero here. So, I think in terms of funding source, you can avoid some additional costs to taxpayers by doing that. And seeking other grant funding. We've been very successful, I think, as a town in attracting and receiving grant funding for energy projects. And I would point most recently to the Parks building where we have a photovoltaic battery storage system, the first of any municipality in New York State. So again, I think we have to keep looking forward, look at the impacts over time, not get scared off by the initial cost, because as we know, things don't get less expensive as we move forward. I probably used up all the air in the room at this point, so I'll move on.
I agree with you, Peter. I just like to make some observations. Yes, I agree that the PV system is important to do right up the front. When we talk about putting installations of PV systems in, which again, we have made a climate declaration, and we have a climate action plan, and in our climate emergency declaration, we have adopted a policy that all of our town projects meet net zero or approach very closely to net zero. I also could say, you could look at the initial cost. Perhaps there's a way to consolidate the PV system, but when we leave something like that out, and as we're learning, as we retrofit existing buildings and moving them from oil and fossil fuel heating systems to new systems, the price is much more expensive for the retrofit than it is for the initial cost. So when you're saying something like leaving off a PV system, you have to think about what you're digging up then to put it in for the infrastructure. You're creating much more cost than if you did it at the beginning. So while isolated, it looks like a tremendous amount of money, it's money well spent. And also perhaps the savings that will happen by producing this electricity can be enumerated to us as well, because it's not just a one-way street on any of that. I agree with the walking trails. It's de minimis. And again, when you're laying these things out and you're building, if you take them out, it becomes very difficult to put them back in after the project's already designed. We end up spending more money, perhaps doing more unnecessary clearing as we go along. And also, to me, removing an emergency generator on a town building that could be a heating and cooling center and a gathering place for folks in an emergency planning would be foolish. A couple of things that I would just ask for questions in terms of the interior and exterior surfaces. Is there a way to save money in that type of, in the cladding areas rather than going into the necessary, what I view as the necessary infrastructure? I would like to know if there's ways to reduce it that way, if it's possible. We don't see any proposals there. And, I'm still having problems with the metal outside in terms of how it will look and how it fits into East Hampton. Also, I appreciate the bird's eye view very much, but it would be nice to have street view. Most of us don't have wings and we'll see it from the street, so it would be appreciative to have a street view so that we could look at what we'll be looking at from Abraham's Path. And that's it.
So where did you land asphalt versus concrete?
Asphalt needs a lot of maintenance. It doesn't really weather well. Look at the potholes we're constantly fixing. In terms of maintenance, again, an upfront cost versus how much we're going to save over years with maintenance, I think we have to balance that out. So to knock funds off by trying to save, it's penny wise, pound foolish. I think the most, whatever you can do that has the longest maintenance record now will pay for itself later, because asphalt's expensive, as we know, and it's not going to get cheaper. And also the composition of it too really doesn't fit with our climate emergency plan as well.
So in terms of that, maybe we could get a response from the engineers on the call as to the life expectancy of each of those two options. Asphalt versus concrete. Do we have a sense on that?
The difference between the two?
Yes, in terms of longevity and maintenance.
So the asphalt, if we put the asphalt in, you could expect probably a good 20-year lifespan before anything starts to fall apart and deteriorate. The concrete's probably significantly higher, maybe 30 or 40 years, something like that. Kevin, do you agree with those?
Yep, that's right on the money, as far as I know.
So the concrete is 30 to 40 years?
Yeah, we've actually done a design, and I don't have it in front of me right now, but we can forward you guys more detailed information about that concrete parking area and the life expectancy of the concrete drive aisles and parking areas.
I think we may have had a real life example of the life expectancy of concrete. I may be wrong, but wasn't Springs Fireplace Road concrete?
Yeah,
Before
built in the 30s.
And it was built in the 30s, and it was
It was a pretty heavy duty.
well trafficked and lasted a very long time.
Right. The problem is when you have to replace that, that's a much bigger replacement cost. Like the expressway, a lot of it was concrete. So it's one of those things that, say 50 or 60 years down the road or whatever, if it has to be replaced, it's a more significant effort than just milling down the asphalt and putting a new asphalt driveway and parking area.
Maybe that'll be time for something new to develop.
So as I understood, hearing from presenters, that one of the concerns about the asphalt was that it would create heat gain, that it would absorb sunlight, and that was part of the issue. I wonder to what extent having plantings along the driveway and trees as they mature would sort of counter that, mitigate it, or? I mean, I think for me, the jury's still out on the use of asphalt versus concrete, because in some ways concrete can be environmentally not too friendly either. So I don't really know where that nets out.
I think I would say we have our energy consultants, and I think we'd like to return to you with more detailed information.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
I
think
understand
it'd be helpful in a
there's
discussion.
a new, more sustainable, probably much more money, concrete production. So maybe we could look at that as well.
Yeah, we can do that. We actually have been looking at different concretes. We're using one now, maybe, I know Ryan Giblin's on this call, where it actually encapsulates carbon. And so it becomes, instead of being a problem with the release of carbon dioxide, it actually is it reduces carbon dioxide to the environment. But they are new materials. I don't know if they're available on Long Island, but we'll look at that for you.
Great.
Thank you. So Kathy, do you have?
No, I look forward to R2 coming back with an analysis so we can make the decision on asphalt versus concrete. My only concerns with trails 2 and 3 is that they're not ADA, but we will have trail 1 will be ADA, so that's important. We need the PV system. To Kate's point, is there, and David's as well, we've got one in the front and one in the back. Is there, economies of scale if they were consolidated? I know we wanted to keep, when you're coming up the pole, we kept the PVs, towards the back so you didn't see it as you entered the property. But if it makes more sense financially to have it all centralized rather than having 2 distinct systems, maybe we should look at that as well. We need the charging stations, we need the generator. As Kate pointed out, the senior center is a warming and cooling center. We also have, a great deal of money invested in what's in the walk-in refrigerators and freezers. And we may even be able to, I don't know, we have to, coordinate when we get to it with with Jeannie Carosa in purchasing, we may have things on contract that we could potentially bring costs down. And I think that's it. And hopefully, looking at grant funding, we have been successful in the past, and hopefully there's a lot of infrastructure money out there and available, particularly for a building that's looking to be net zero.
Any other comments, board members?
I will say that, interestingly enough, we've been talking about this plan for probably a year now. And I've had more interest from architects and builders in the last few days since the presentation, local architects and builders, since the presentation went up on Friday afternoon. And folks are, giving their suggestions or thoughts into it. So, I look forward to sharing that tomorrow on our call. I know we're going to have an internal call with the R2 team just before Thanksgiving to go over, where we are now, because they are getting ready to go to construction documents. So I'm looking forward to that conversation tomorrow.
Great.
And just to talk about the PVs, the amount and type, the quantity of PVs is directly related to the energy consumption of the building. Right. And the primary driver is the commercial kitchen. So there's a relationship. So reducing, consolidating, those all have to be taken into account when looking at the equipment and the services provided by that kitchen.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you all very much. We appreciate all of your time today. R2 and
Thank you.
LK McLean.
Hope you all have a good Thanksgiving.
I was going to say, you as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks. Next up, we have the proposed code changes for West Drive and Morris Park Lane. Rob, you want to give us a summary of?
So it's my understanding that the residents of Morris Park Lane have become concerned with the amount of traffic that's traversing to cut through down to 3 Mile Harbor Road and Springs Fireplace Road from West Drive. So what's being proposed is to add 2 additional stop signs on West Drive at Morris Park Lane in the north and south directions, and to limit the weight of vehicles that can travel down Morris Park Lane and West Drive to be 8,000 pounds maximum.
So there's only 2 roads in town of East Hampton that have weight limits. One is Accobotic, which we did just in the last couple of years, and the other is Indian Wells Highway, and that is at 8,000 pounds. So when talking to Steve Lynch, he thought that would make sense. This has been discussed at a East Hampton CAC meeting where we had some of the neighbors in. This is not their first choice. Their first choice is to close the road off the way it was back, I guess, 80s and early 90s. And but in order to do that, it would have to make a cul-de-sac for the turning radius for a fire truck. And they did, though.
For each road.
I'm sorry?
For each road.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's possible at this point.
So this is something we believe we should try this. We're hoping, it'll work. What we're finding is that with the weight limit, it'll stop vehicles that are coming from the corridor, industrial trucks and whatnot to cut through there. School buses are cutting through there. So that should be helpful. Also, one of the concerns was that if you're coming from Springs Fireplace Road along West Drive, you're making a left-hand turn. Some folks are taking it at too fast. And this way, having the stop signs there will slow the traffic. And I do think I'm going to ask Steve, the stop sign that's already there on Morris Park Lane, the intersection of West Drive is kind of in a shrub. So maybe we can just move that out a little bit. We do have going in one direction, one of the yellow signs that say narrow road, 15 miles per hour. Obviously, that's just a suggestion. that sign is there heading west, but there's no sign, a similar sign heading east. So that's something else that we could ask the highway department to take care of. So I think there's ways that we can improve, improve the conditions down there so that folks will be more comfortable. I mean, it is a cut through, and we heard during COVID, a lot of neighborhoods in our community, people are looking to avoid, major intersections and lights and whatnot, and they're using the Waves app and whatnot to take back roads. There's a lot of, unfortunately, roads in our community now where kids could go out and play and ride their bike or throw a ball around, which is not the case anymore because there's just so many more people living here. But
Well, I think that's an apt description, and we've really seen quite a change with the increased number of people traveling the roadways and many of our secondary roads becoming at capacity at various times and people seeking to avoid those backups and taking shortcuts through residential neighborhoods. It's not just here in our town, but it's all over. And at the East End Mayors and Supervisors, East End Supervisors and Mayors Association had a discussion with the new incoming mayor of Southampton Village, discussing that issue for them. And of course, the rest of us all agreed that we're seeing that everywhere. And a lot of it is the map services, Waze or Google Maps, rerouting people to the fastest route, which is often through a quiet residential neighborhood that didn't experience that kind of traffic. So we're aware of it, and to the extent we can make those roadways safer, but we're not going to be able to put, I think, barricades on people's roads so that the general public can't use them.
So what I'm going to do is notice this for public hearing on December 7th, and we can, I'll wait to hear back. I have a CAC meeting coming up. If it makes more sense to hold the public hearing on December 21st, so close to the holidays, we may want to wait and hold it on January 4th. So we'll figure that one out. I'll, kind of take a poll of the CAC and see what they think is most practical.
Okay, anything else on this topic before you move on? Okay, next up we have the 2024 Community Development Block Grants. And we have our Director of Housing, Eric Chance, here, who's going to walk us through those recommended grants for the various projects.
Okay, hello everyone.
Good afternoon, Eric.
Good afternoon. I had a presentation that I wanted to put up on the screen, but I don't see the prompt there, so I don't know if that's something.
I think they were having technical difficulties. We had to have our other presenters.
I think you're going to have to log in and as a new user.
Okay.
So if you go to the sign out screen and change user.
Yeah. Eric, should I forward you the email for the invite today, and then you should be able just to log right in via join?
And share screen.
Okay, that works.
Yeah, I'll do it to you. I'll do it for you right now.
So while we're on the topics of roadways and stop signs, I'll just mention, and I'll mention again my liaison report. On Fresh Pond Road and Cross Highway, their intersection there does not contain three-way stop. It's right at the entrance of where that municipal parking lot is as well.
I know where it is.
And people tend to buzz around that corner rather fast, and the other people going the other way aren't really sure whether they're continuing onto the parking lot or if they're going to turn on to the other roadway. So it seems like another situation where we have an intersection that's would benefit from some additional signage. We do occasionally find even four-way intersections that don't have any stop signs in town, legacy of earlier time.
Yeah.
Let's say.
Horse and carriage time.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody knows that the horse has the right of way, right?
Yes.
Eric, did you get the email?
Not yet. I'm still signing in.
Oh, okay, yeah, because you can just hit join meeting and then type in the meeting ID and then the passcode, and then after that, it could work. But if you have your laptop with you, are you already logged onto Zoom on your laptop?
I'm not.
Okay.
Okay, because you can use your laptop to do the presentation as well, to share content, and without joining any audio or video.
No problem. That's what I'm planning on doing right now.
That's even better. I love that plan.
Okay, joining the meeting now. I'll get started while we set this up. Let me just, sorry, all these prompts. Okay, connecting now, so.
Okay, waiting for it. Okay, and there's no audio or video connected? No audio connected?
Yeah, I selected no audio.
Thank you, thank you.
Mute anyway, so you don't get that reverb.
I would appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay, you are in, and there's no audio or video. You are ready to share. Thank you very much, Eric.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent.
Great. Okay. So let me just see if I can, well, all right. Good enough. Anyway, I had sent around to the board our recommendations for community development block grant projects for the coming year. Basically, what I'm going to do here is give you a summary of those projects, but just as a brief reminder, and I apologize just because this isn't on the usual screen. It's a little condensed, but I'll try and make that easier to see. But with the CDBG projects, usually every year we have a budget of about $120,000. That is what we expect for the coming year. These are projects for community development. Generally speaking, they have to be in areas identified by the census as low to moderate income or in existing affordable housing developments that are for the benefit of low to moderate income individuals and families. These funds can also be used for the elimination of slums and blight. That I'm saying that verbatim, but we don't really have those situations in our town, thankfully. And then also community needs of a particular emergency or ADA improvements. So one thing to keep in mind is that public services, we have public works projects or public improvements and public services projects. There's certain categories. The services are limited to 15% of the total grant. Usually those are lump sums that we will give to participating semi-public facilities such as Maureen's Haven, where that can go for staffing, for equipment, basically for miscellaneous purposes for an agency that provides public services. That's as opposed to most of the projects and the bulk of the funding, which is usually reserved for actual physical public improvements, whether it be an ADA accessible entranceway to a building, a walkway, a playing field, things of that sort. So the town board does need to adopt a resolution to memorialize these specific projects that we're going to fund by December 1st. As you probably know, this is the last meeting today before December 1st. So we do have a resolution on for you for this evening, or for this afternoon, I should say. And at the end here, I will get to one consideration with that resolution and timeframes, but I'll save that for now. So I apologize that this isn't really centered on the screen here. But basically, these are the requests that have been received. Very briefly, going from top to bottom, the East Hampton Housing Authority would like to install solar panels at the 3 Mile Harbor Affordable Housing Complex, which is still under construction, but slated to be finished in 2024. They're asking for $40,000. The Retreat, which is a domestic abuse shelter, is asking for money to renovate an existing outbuilding to turn it into a recreational facility. They're asking for $70,000. Whalebone Village is asking for over $70,000 for a parking lot resurfacing. Then St. Michael's, Windmill 1 and Windmill 2 are asking for $10,000, $12,000, and $8,000 respectively, all for tables and chairs for their respective community rooms. Maureen's Haven is asking for, well, they didn't specifically ask for a dollar amount. In the past few years, we've given them $5,000 annually, and that's basically for their operating expenses, staffing, equipment, things of that sort. And then the town is also looking to do a project at the new Stephen Hans Path ball fields of adding a stone ADA accessible chess table with benches around it. So we're assuming that we don't have an exact figure on that yet, but to set aside roughly $10,000 for that project. So if you look at the bottom here, and I apologize on this screen, it's a little obscured, but that totals $223,000, a little bit more than that. Again, as I said, we expect that we're only going to have about $120,000. So we need to sort of trim down determine which projects we're going to fund, if we're going to partially fund them. So this is just sort of an overview of the approach that we took. 3 Mile Harbor solar project, you just heard it on the last work session topic about the senior center. The town is committed to its green energy goals. That, again, was a $40,000 request. We feel that we can fund that. Also, what we like to see with these projects and funding them is a project that is going to begin in the fiscal year that, that CDBG year that it's going to begin, and that we have an anticipated, end of construction, end of project date that falls within the next few years. So all of that qualifies the 3 Mile Harbor solar project, so we'd like to fund that in the entirety of the amount requested. With St. Michael's, Windmill 1 and Windmill 2, the tables and chairs for their community rooms, those are materials only. They're very easy projects. They are areas and equipment that is used by the tenants of those individual developments, on a daily basis. So we see them as not only an easy project to fund and fulfill, they're also relatively affordable, but also something, that can be done efficiently and quickly. Also, public services. So really the only request we got right now is from Maureen's Haven. Again, as I said, in years past, we've given them $5,000. I see no reason why we can't or shouldn't continue to do that. And then the Stephen Hans Path ball fields, again, just that ADA accessible chess table and benches. They're minor accessory structures. As you know, the facility was recently built and is in use. So we see that as a project that is beneficial and easy to complete within 2024. So that really the only two requests we received that had any kind of issue with them were the parking lot resurfacing for Whalebone Village. Again, about $70,000 was requested, and we have a budget of about $120,000. So it's a large project in terms of the portion of the funding that we anticipate to get. We discussed with Whalebone, with their representatives. We were initially looking to do a partial funding of maybe $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. However, they really need the bulk of that $70,000 to even begin the project. So I don't think it really makes sense to set aside some money that could go to another project that is going to be carried out in the coming year, when we can basically postpone this, and this could be a potential 2025 project in its entirety. So the other issue was that the Retreat was looking for about $70,000 as well for their project. They're still in the early planning stages of that project. They don't have building plans made up. They're not really ready to hit the ground running in 2024. What we're proposing is to give them partial funding, though, of about 50% of their request. So you'll see the next slide is a breakdown of what our recommendation is, but we're recommending $35,000 of their $70,000 request. And then also, this goes also for whalebone. Sometimes when we get to the end of the year, the county will come back to us and say that there are surplus funds. Most often, this is other municipalities that don't take advantage of, the money that was available. Some of their projects, they're no longer looking to do. So sometimes there is additional money available, and we may be able to allocate that to the Retreats project or Whalebone's parking lot resurfacing. So I apologize. This is a little bit difficult to read, but basically what you'll see in the split screen here is on the left, slide that you saw previously, which is a summary of all the recommendations, of all the requests, and then on the right are our recommendations. The only differences between what's been requested and what we're recommending that you fund is that, again, the Whalebone project not being funded for this year. Presumably, we would look to fund that next year. And then the Retreat, giving them half of the $70,000 requested for $35,000. So with that financial structure there, that brings us to the $120,000. So basically, for the most part, we are granting what was requested by all the applicants, with the exception of 50% funding for the Retreat and then skipping the Whalebone parking lot resurfacing. So that's basically it. Again, the deadline for the application from the town to the county, because there's sort of a hierarchy here. These are federal funds ultimately. So the town has to, our deadline is December 1st to get those requests into the county, and then the county has some time to get that funding from the federal government. I will say, and I will go back quickly to this slide, which was the project request. It came to my attention actually late yesterday, and I've been working on it this morning, that the community room tables and chairs projects, which are the ones in the middle here again for Windmill 1, Windmill 2, and St. Michael's, all of them are roughly $10,000. Because they are not fixed tables and chairs, they may not qualify as a public works project because you don't have a hardened actual infrastructure improvement. I'm not sure that that's true. We checked this list with the county before we brought this in front of you, but it might be. If that's the case, they probably do qualify for a public services project. So what I'm thinking of doing is, my understanding is that the Windmill 1 tables and chairs are the ones in most need of replacement. I'll probably take that, put that up, keep that as a public services project, and then we won't be able to fund the other 2 tables and chairs projects, which is roughly $20,000. We take that and put that and add that to the Retreats project, so their $35,000 would go to roughly $55,000 of the $70,000 that they requested. That being said, the advice I got from the county was for you, provided you agree with our recommended project funding, adopt that resolution, meet the deadline for December 1st. We're going to work with the county next week to smooth that out. It may require another resolution to come in front of the town board to sort of correct things. But basically the spirit is the same. It's just that we might not be able to fund all 3 of those tables and chairs requests. It might just be one of them.
So the resolution doesn't need any amending as it's proposed?
It doesn't, and I checked with the county. They said, go, if the town board is okay with it, go ahead and adopt it. We'll just make a subsequent amendment to it, because really the deadline of December 1st, which is why this is on a work session topic, and I gave you a resolution on the same day, it's so that we could meet the county's December 1st deadline. But we're going to work with them. They know that there's an issue there. They kind of told us to go ahead with it, but that might not be the case. So we'll work with them. You might have another resolution to change things around, but
I think it's easier, I agree that it's easier to take it out after than to put it in after. Obviously, you wouldn't meet the deadline if they were approved. I could support your recommendations, Eric. I think they're thoughtful and practical.
Any other comments or
No, I'm supportive of the
questions?
recommendation. And I just know, being the liaison to the Housing Authority, we gave them a similar, I think it might have been $30,000 last time for the solar, and it made all the difference when you have money to start, money, that tracks money. And now they've got the Avalon projects about ready to go up. So it helped them a great deal in attracting grant funding.
Yeah, I also support the recommendation, so we'll move forward. And if we need to make adjustments or modifications, we'll do so when the time's appropriate. Thank you very much,
Sounds
Eric.
good. Thank you.
I'm going to do this after yours.
That brings us up to liaison reports.
Okay, great. So actually, Katie Casey from the Housing Authority, Eric Shantz, and I met with a few of the trustees of the East Hampton Healthcare Foundation last Friday, and we learned that the Healthcare Foundation provides sublevel leases for primary care and specialists, and that there were 70,000 visits to the doctor's offices there, which surprised me, over on Panago Place. Their urgent care facility on Montauk Highway, which is run by Meeting House Lane, sees 8,000 visits per year. They've funded over $1 million in care for those uninsured and underinsured, and they now offer a scholarship program to East Hampton High School graduates who pursue careers in medical as medical technicians. So that was great what they shared with us, and I just thought I'd pass that on because it was something I didn't know prior. And then we talked about affordable housing. So Katie Casey and Eric gave a brief overview of existing and planned housing programs, and we just started the conversation of how we can work together to create housing opportunities for medical professionals and workers, and it was a very productive meeting, and it really got the dialogue started. Last Friday, the Disability Advisory Board met. Glenn Hall was happy to announce that the Amagansett Firehouse was compliant for the 2023 election. Apparently, the Suffolk County Board of Elections brought out a ramp for access, and it was really welcomed by disabled members of the community. We also talked about the CVS on Montauk Highway. Apparently, there's issues with the location of their handicap parking spots, the parking and the curb cuts into that entrance there. It needs repositioning particularly for van accessibility.
Which CVS? I'm sorry.
The one on Montauk Highway across from Red Horse Market.
Okay.
In the village. So Tom Priato wasn't on this Friday. He wasn't available. So it's something we're going to follow up with him on to see if we can get that corrected. On Thursday, November 16th, we had a public hearing, and we talked about the e-bike legislation. We had some public comment. Rob is going to go back and make some adjustments to that. So we will bring that back to the December 5th work session. And then lastly, I just wanted to announce, I had gotten an email from Sarah Smith, the East Hampton High School principal. They're holding, the high school in conjunction with East Hampton Town Police Department are hosting a community forum on Wednesday, December 6th at 6 o'clock in the East Hampton Library. The guest speaker is Sal LaFerrari, who will address an array of topics all under the umbrella of online safety, popular social networking sites used by children, online bullying, stalking and harassment, liabilities of sexting, and the elicitation of minors on the web. Perhaps more importantly, Sal will also offer strategies for defense against online threats. Since this is a topic that impacts all students of all ages, the East Hampton District has sent out this flyer to all of the sending districts and asking parents and guardians, to attend. While they said the target audience is usually parents, they do welcome children to come too if they feel so inclined, but topics are not for young children. So we're also asking, teachers, staff, and community members to attend as well. So that's an important discussion that'll be happening on Wednesday, December 6th at 6 o'clock at the East Hampton High School Library. And that's what I have for today. And just also wanted to just wish members of our community a very happy and healthy Thanksgiving. I hope they get to spend it with family, friends, and get to see a little football, because I know we'll be watching a lot of football.
Thank you, Kathy. Kate?
Yes, Peter. First, I'm happy to announce that the first turbine for Southwark Wind Farm has been installed, and that project is moving along, which will benefit the entire community with enough energy to power 77,000 homes with clean, renewable energy. Also, in the same vein, our LED streetlight project is 99-ish% complete. It has been for a while, and I've driven around and looked and really don't really see it as a benefit for our community, and I don't see that it has impacted anything negatively at all. And we haven't heard from anyone as well, and they've been up for quite some time. The Waterfront Advisory Committee met. They've submitted to you, Peter, the supervisor's annual progress report, and that helped with a lot of help from Brian Frank in the planning department, and they look forward to your reply. They have listed their recommendations for priority projects and are interested in, again, meeting and understanding our hurricane and storm preparedness plans. The Energy and Sustainability Committee met. As a matter of fact, as you know, in the summer, a subcommittee of the Energy and Sustainability Committee made a presentation on all electrification to us. We had questions. It was some time before the questions came back. And I would like to have a discussion at the December 5th work session, make my recommendation for the my recommendation for the recommendation, and then have discussion with you all on it. They've discussed, as you heard today, the leaf blower ban. They have are gathering we're going to have a second presentation on the roadmap from Sam Klein and Natural Resources, which will isolate. There was so much technical data in that overall presentation from the consultants that we'd like to bring forth a presentation, and I believe that will be on the 5th as well, on the recommendations section, so we can decide if we'd like to move forward to adopt the plan and move it into the comprehensive plan. So that will again be taking place in December. The Energy Sustainability Committee themselves are going through the roadmap and have a list of recommendations, will have a list of recommendations for their priorities. Number one on everybody's mind is CCA. But again, we're looking to see what happens with the bids that came in for Southampton and whether we would join in that project as we have the ability to do in our legislation. The last meeting of the year for the Energy Sustainability will be in person in the town hall here, and I'll be giving out the dates for that. It's in, I think it's December 18th that they were looking at. Finally, Aubrey Peterson, who's a member of the Energy Sustainability Committee, made an impassioned plea on behalf of young people in the town for us to look into tree protection legislation as they have in other municipalities. As we know, losing mature oaks, beeches, our natural trees, canopy really can't be replaced with a re-veg plan. These are mature 10, 20, 30-year-old trees. So Aubrey made an impassioned plea to look into that, and I will be doing some research on that as well. And that'll be outside of the Zoning Codes Committee. That committee is moving forward. We are actually now moving from a very broad focus, looking at setbacks, GFA, what to include in GFA on structures, and the impacts that they have on our community, to a narrow focus of what really we consider overdevelopment and how we can manage that. So as we move along this process, we'll be also developing the presentation to bring forward to the town board and to the community in some listening sessions that the committee will host. And I believe with the holidays and everything at this point, that'll begin in January. And that is all I have.
So Kate, I have gotten a lot of information on tree protection legislation from Cheryl Gold, so I'm happy to
Oh,
forward.
yeah, that would be great. I know Sylvia did some work on it as well. I'm going to ask her. That would be wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate that. And that's what I have.
Thank you, Kate. So on Saturday, I had the pleasure of meeting folks at the Montauk Lighthouse as part of the culmination of the 25th anniversary of the Paumanok Path, which was celebrated through a series of hikes presented by the Eastham Trails Preservation Society. Kathy also attended there. We were joined by Karen Kehoe from the governor's office and by our county legislator, Bridget Fleming, who also presented proclamations acknowledging the good work the Eastham Trails Preservation Society does for our town. And we thank all those volunteers who work tirelessly to keep the trails in good order and clear, and introducing both visitors and residents alike to our over 300 miles of trail system, I think it is now. I think we have actually just a little bit more miles in trail than we do paved roadways. So thanks to them. There's an upcoming meeting with the MTA on November 30th. That meeting is being held for the benefit of East Ended elected officials to discuss the Spionk to Montauk capacity improvements and their findings, their comparative evaluation projects for the 20-year needs assessment. So they're doing an in-depth next 20 years needs. Many of those needs, I think, are needed now and have been for the last 5 years. So we look forward to that. I don't have to remind any of us really that given our influx of people to work here on a daily basis, the need for improving the capacity of our railroad, there's really no opportunity to increase our roadways, and the railroad is underutilized, and in order to better utilize it requires infrastructure improvements. So we look forward to that. We look forward to pressing that case as well as to what the critical need for improvements there. As I mentioned earlier in the meeting, I'll be bringing forward a discussion of the Cross Highway Fresh Pond intersection signage to alleviate some safety concerns that are there. It's immediately adjacent to a road end at Gardner's Bay, as well as a public municipal parking lot for that beach. And it is confusing and dangerous the way it's currently, or the lack of signage there. So we'll have a discussion about improving that. The FIMP initial project coordination meeting is underway right now. I want to thank David Lease for attending that on my behalf, as that frees me up to run the meeting today. That's all I have for liaison report at this time, and we do have a few resolutions to offer.
Resolution 2023-1494, it's for the 2024 deer hunting lottery. The 2024 deer hunting season opens at sunrise January 7th and runs through sunset January 31st. Applications for the lottery will be available in the town clerk's office beginning December 4th and must be returned to the town clerk no later than 4 p.m. December 20th, 2023, to be eligible for the lottery drawings. Carol, you'll be open that day?
Oh, there he is.
Okay.
Second.
David, you made it back.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passed and carried.
1495 is the secret determination appropriation of funds, whereas the town board has before its consideration on November 21st, 2023, a resolution for the appropriation of funding from the Capital Reserve Fund for general capital improvements, subject to permissive referendum pursuant to New York State General Municipal Law, Section 6C8, for costs related to site preparation in connection with the construction of the new senior center. The cost of such site preparation is estimated to not to exceed $200,000 as recommended by town consultants and engineer, final amount to be determined by accepted bid, whereas such site preparation is a type 2 action under the regulations enacted under the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, SECRA, and Chapter 128 of the Town Code. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board finds the site preparation, the cost of which is to be paid from an appropriation of funds from the Capital Reserve Fund for general capital improvements, is classified as a type 2 action under SECRA and Chapter 128 of the Town Code, and as such, no environmental analysis of the proposed project is required.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carried.
2023-1496 is a notice of public hearing, presentation of the application of the East Hampton Town Senior Center, whereas the town board of the town of East Hampton has before it a presentation of the application for a new 22,000 square foot senior center on a described 7.008 acre parcel owned by the town, commonly referred to as 403 Abraham's Path, Amagansett, and whereas R2 Architecture in collaboration with LK McLean Associates, PC, and the town of East Hampton's Planning Department have developed, among other items, architectural and engineering plans and a full environmental assessment form for consideration of the town board. And whereas these documents are intended to guide the development of the proposed senior center on the town-owned parcel, and now therefore be it resolved that the town board will hold a hearing to consider above referenced documents, said hearing to be held on Thursday, December 7th, 2023 at 2 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
2023-1497 is an appropriation of capital reserve funds for general capital improvements. This is for the costs related to the construction of the new senior center capital project in an amount not to exceed $200,000. So we're looking to make a budget modification from the general capital improvements reserve fund in $200,000 to design plans senior center in the amount of $200,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passed and carried.
2023-1498 is a notice to bidders EH 23-051. It's tree clearing for 403 Abraham's Path. The bid is available 11/30/2023. The bid is due back 12/14/2023. And the final resolved is that the work under this contract shall not be commenced until a secret determination has been prepared by the town.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passed and carried.
I would like to offer Resolution 2023-1499. This is a contract extension for the CPF water quality contribution to the Peconic Estuary Partnership for the calendar year 2023. The award to the town of East Hampton's share for 2023 would be $198,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passed and carried.
2023-1500 is the retained Drew Bennett for 803 Fireplace Road for engineering evaluation. It costs not to exceed $2,200 as a proposal dated on November 17th, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passed and carried.
I have Resolution 1501, and this is to adopt, execute year 2024 Community Development Block Grants. That's the presentation we saw earlier. And resolve that the supervisor, deputy supervisor, and/or director of housing, where applicable, is hereby authorized to execute the year 2024 Community Development Project Description Forms describing the following projects by which this resolution are adopted by the town board as the 2024 Community Development Block Grant Budget. One, public service, under public services is Maureen's Haven for $5,000. Under public works is East Hampton Housing Authority solar panels at 3 Mile Harbor Affordable Housing Complex in the amount of $40,000. The retreat renovation for a recreation facility in the amount of $35,000. St. Michael's Housing and Associate Community Room, tables and chairs, $10,000. Windmill Village LLC, Windmill 2, community room tables and chairs, $12,000. Windmill 1, community room tables and chairs for $8,000. Stephen Hens Path Ball Fields 88, chess table, benches, and concrete slabs in the amount of $10,000 for a total of $120,000. Resolved that the aforementioned officials are hereby authorized to execute any documents necessary to effectuate those projects as approved by the town board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carried.
Resolution 1502 is the accept of a grant of scenic and conservation easement for Maureen Goldberg, and this is a public hearing was held by the town board on November 16th on a proposed grant of a scenic and conservation easement, whereas the acceptance of the easement as submitted and heard is hereby found to be in the best interest of the town. Be it resolved that the town hereby accepts the scenic easement listed below, which is the grantor is Maureen Goldberg. Type of easement is scenic and conservation. Date of the easement is October 20th, 2023. The location is 28 Holly Hill Road, Amagansett. Tax map number 300-127-2-50, and the reviewing agency is the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
1503 is the Montauk Sunset Cottages grant of large lot scenic easement, whereas a public hearing was held by the town board on November 16th on the proposed grant of a large lot scenic easement to the town, whereas acceptance of the scenic easement as submitted and heard is hereby found to be in the best interest of the town. Now therefore be it resolved, the town hereby accepts the scenic easement listed below. That's Montauk Sunset Cottages LLC, large lot scenic easement, October 18th, 2023. The location is 31 and 41 East Lake Drive, Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-20-2-13.1 and 13.2. The reviewing agency is the planning board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carried.
1504 is a budget modification for the planning department, and this is taking from full-time salaries in the amount of $106,675 and moving that to outside professional in the same amount.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution 1505 is to amend the Springs Fireplace Corridor Study, and this is pursuant to Resolution 2023-916, the Springs Fireplace Corridor Study. Requested Suffolk County Department of Public Works request for traffic analysis. LK McLean Associates PC was hereby retained to perform the services for the town with an amount not to exceed $20,000, where LK McLean hereby retained subconsultant Traffic Counts Collecting, Inc., with an amount not to exceed $2,350. Thereby be it resolved that LK McLean's portion of the work at $17,650 and Traffic Counts Collecting, Inc. portion of the work at $2,350 shall not exceed the $20,000 from the appropriate budget account.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passed and carried.
A resolution 2023-1506 is to authorize training for town justice-elect, whereas in 2024, David Filer, and there's a typo there, it says the David Filer, just take out the. David Filer has been elected to town justice as per an election that took place on November 7th, 2023, whereas Mr. Filer is required to complete a certification course prior to assuming the functions of the Office of Town Justice, and said certification will be offered by New York State Office of Court Administration commencing on December 11th, 2023 through December 15th, 2023 in Albany, and whereas pursuant to New York State Uniform Justice Court Act Section 105, all towns are required to pay actual and necessary expenses that are incurred as part of this required certification for newly elected justices. Be it resolved that David Filer is hereby authorized to attend and be reimbursed for said expenses, including including but not limited to accommodations, tolls, meals as appropriate, in an amount not to exceed $2,000 upon a properly submitted voucher.
Second is amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carried. Resolution 2023-1507 is bond secra. Resolved that the town board finds the upgrade of the town's upgrade of radio equipment for the town's communication system to the 700 megahertz system is classified as type 2 action under secra and chapter 128 of the town code. And as such, no environmental analysis of the proposed project is required.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carried. 1508 is a bond for $5 million for additional radio communications system. Second.
Second.
Carol, would you do a roll call, please?
Councilmember Burke Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilmember Lees.
Aye.
Councilmember Rogers.
Aye.
Supervisor Van Scoyac.
Aye. Passed and carried. 1509 is to accept the resignation of Assistant Town Attorney David McMasters effective November 3rd, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Passed and carried. 1510 is auction of surplus equipment. And as resolved that the sale of surplus town highway department equipment as set forth in the attached list will be offered for sale by Auctions International at their website listed in the resolution.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. 1511 is to amend Resolution 2023-1447, waive fees for false alarm for the East Hampton High School, whereas the resolution was passed to waive the fees for 2 false alarm calls in the amount of $125, and whereas the correct amount for the invoice is $1,250. Therefore, be it resolved, Town Board does hereby amend the Resolution 2023-1447 to reflect the correct total of $1,250.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carried. 1512 is to accept proposal emergency and public safety radio system expansion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carried. I have 2 additional resolutions. The first is Resolution ID 30276, and this is for the Northwest Fire Protection District Agreement for 24-25. And that is for services during the calendar year of 2024. The town of East Hampton shall pay the village a sum of $2,387,620. And for fire protection services, $1,921,590. For ambulance services, $424,087. Repairs and maintenance in the amount of $41,943. The 2025 calendar year, it's the total sum of $2,483,125, excuse me. And fire protection in the amount of $1,998,454. Ambulance services in the amount of $441,050. And repairs and maintenance in the amount of $43,621.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. Resolution ID 30275 is East Hampton Water Supply for Fire Protection District Agreement for 2024-2025. For such services during the 12-month period in 2024, the village town shall pay the village a sum of $231,868 for the calendar year. Fire protection in the amount of $925,843. Ambulance services in the amount of $271,850. Repairs and maintenance in the amount of $34,175. And for the 12-month period of 25, the East Hampton town shall pay the village a sum of $1,281,143. Fire protection in the amount of $962,877. Ambulance services, $282,724. Maintenance and repair in the amount of $35,542.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I have, do you have an additional one, Peter?
No, I don't.
I have an additional resolution. It's Resolution ID 30273. It's Wireless Communications Facility Consulting Services for Cityscapes Consultants, Inc., whereas the town board entered into an agreement with Cityscape Consultants for professional engineering service for wireless communication facility consulting services, and whereas wireless applications submitted to the planning department from January 1st, 2023 to current present date for review shall be forwarded to Cityscape to determine completeness, whereas services and review of Tier 1 wireless, small wireless applications not to exceed $800 per site. Tier 2, non-substantial macro co-locations, modifications and upgrades not to exceed $1,800 per site. Tier 3, new structure, substantial macro co-locations, modifications or upgrades not to exceed $5,000 per site, and whereas for any additional services outside of the fixed fees, regulatory not to exceed $300 per hour, senior engineer $250 per hour, planner $150 per hour, field engineering, planning travel time $75 per hour. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the town enters into an agreement for the services outlined above, effective retroactive to January 1st, 2023, and that payment for current and outstanding 2023 Cityscape invoices related to the review of wireless applications forwarded to Cityscape consultants to be paid from outside professional budget line.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Any other resolutions or matters to bring before the board? I would just like to take a moment and wish my colleagues and all of our town employees and all of our residents a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. We have so many things to be thankful for, and I know I'm thankful for all of you. In addition, I would just urge you to think of those who are less fortunate during this time especially, and consider making contributions to our local food pantries or any other charitable organizations of your choice. But for the grace of God, so go we. So thank you all. I'll entertain a motion to go into exec session.
I make a motion to go into exec session to discuss CPF and advice of counsel.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. It is now 1:06. Shall we reconvene at 1:45?
David needs a little bit more time than that.
2
Can we
o'clock?
do 2 o'clock?
Okay, very good.
Great.
2 o'clock, we'll send the link around. Thank you so much.